Oh, hey, I'm Chris from Still Alive Studios. I also run the Still Alive Game Labs Discord server, a place for the professional game developer community to meet, share knowledge, practice their skills in community challenges. We asked Heart Machine for permission to use the Hyperlight Breaker animation clip, and they loved the idea. One thing led to the other, and Troupe, sound designer and composer of Heart Machine, joined our Discord challenges to give feedback to our clips. So coming up, the session we had with Troupe and EE, the community manager. Let's go.
Plenty of clips. I'm glad that everybody joined. I was just listening through everything, and there's so much good stuff. So I'm excited to listen.
One
to
of
everyone.
Our people who is on the technical coder side said it's amazing how those sound similar. I think yeah, I can see what he means. Of course, to a trained ear, they all have a different take and a different style. But I found just recently, because we have done like 40 of those sound challenges, that sometimes we end up with very similar results, which is super interesting. So as if the picture is dictating what type of style and music, even down to what instrument. That was the result with the Spaceship Between Pillars, the music challenge that we had from Dennis Cracker. He did this very nice blender render of one of his spaceships, and we almost ended up with almost the same instruments, almost the same chord progressions. It's crazy.
I mean, I think the hyperlight aesthetic is very much, it sort of demands a certain style because it's so fluid, and it's sort of sci-fi, but it's a little bit fantasy. And so it was cool to see the super clip where everything is in one's long video, and it's like, yeah, that's pretty fits together pretty well. Like 7 different designers in one thing. Yeah. But I think everybody did a really great job, and I'm interested to talk to everybody. I kind of want to find out more about people's process and what they were thinking, just as much as I want to give my feedback.
Jean, you're the first.
All right, the first challenge is everyone
if I butcher your name.
Has to pronounce
it's okay.
João.
Yeah. João,
Get the correct.
Okay, but the translation for maybe English is John, so you can call me John. Yeah.
Very simple. Okay, so let me close that and open this. So is everyone seeing that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Video? Great. So let's just listen through it. Great work. It's awesome.
Thanks.
That's my first point. I think the things that I really like about this one, and I was just kind of listening through everything, is the sense of space. There's a lot of great, there's reverb on the footsteps. There's sort of like a continuity between all the sounds. And I think that's one of the things that I've noticed in, reviewing these and also other mentees, is sometimes there's a lack of kind of continuity of all of these actions are happening in the same space. And I think what's really great about this one is it feels really fluid. It feels really consistent. And the sound choices are great. I mean, there's nothing that's really missing. Listen through again. I think the two biggest things for me are, or really there's kind of one thing, and that's really just impacts. And I think it's here, the second kind of exploding guy. I think it's a really great there's good kind of guts and energy and stuff, but I think I could use more pop and kind of thwack there. And I think the same thing with the explosion at the end. Got all this buildup, and I love the sort of fire energy of this, where it feels really kind of this billowing but I think that the impact moment could have a really nice, like, heavy hit, so that you kind of pay off this nice build you have. And then I want like a really satisfying boom.
Okay,
And
yeah.
then, and I think what's so cool about this explosion is that there's so much time on it that you can almost like unfold the sound. And so you can sort of start, like, give us the impact that we really want. And it can be really simple. I think like when I did this clip, I just had like an 808 hit, like just a bass, and then sort of let that low end energy give you the impact, and then sort of evolve to that like fire. And then, you know, as this thing kind of unfolds, I guess you sort of like faded out the video, but you know, there's like little particles that come up, and it's like, I think this explosion has a lot of, you know, if you look, you go through frame by frame, it's like, what is going on here? There's so many different, there's these lightning crackles, you know, and so I think there's a lot of like really cool detail that you can bring out, because this is ultimately like the payoff of the whole, you know, clip is this moment. And I think like really giving this moment a lot of time to breathe and evolve and give us a lot of different textures would be really nice. But I mean, really, I think there's not much else that I could really critique in this section. I think like you did a really great job with the sort of the balance between all the elements, and, you know, not feeling too heavy when she's just kind of running around and everything. So, you know, if I were to get this, I'm kind of treating all these as like, this is the first pass that someone's given me, and I'm the audio director, I'd be really stoked about it. And
Nice.
yeah, I think you did a really great job.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Cool. Do you have any questions, or, you know, is there anything that you?
No, actually, the thing you said about continuity, it was maybe the first main struggle I had, because I layered all the sounds, but as you said, that maybe sometimes there are sounds that miss between some actions, and I was missing those times. So I had to go bit by bit to see how I could like link up all the different sections of the action, you know. But yeah, I think I did it with maybe a few whooshes. I also used like I recorded my jacket to you know, to give the cape, and the cape actually helped me a lot to give those silent moments nice passing through. So yeah,
I think there's
that continuity issue was a very nice training for me.
I think that's one thing that will probably come up again, you know, in some of the other clips, is like some people really leaned into the Foley, and I thought it actually worked really well. And I kind of was like, I probably should have done more of that in my video, because I think that the cape gives her a lot of sort of personality that's unique to this character, and like her movement and everything. And so I think that the whooshes and the cape movement really like help glue the scene together and sell the sense of like fluidity. So yeah, I think great job on that. And it's a good start. Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, on my screen it's Val.
All right, good. We have the same lineup on our screen, so we're good. I wonder if it's like the order which people joined. Okay, so Val. Okay. All right, and I think this one has got more of the clip in it, so let's check it out. So insane. I love it. This one is like got just such pushed design aesthetics, which is really fun and really like inspiring to listen to. I think like all this stuff at the beginning here, like all this is like so nasty. And I love the way that it's sort of the blade idea is really leaned into. So it's you know, less like my clip. I honestly did this really fast, and it was like over New Year's a few years ago, and I was at my mom's house on vacation and was like, okay, I'm just going to knock this out. So I kind of like just dropped in some lightsabery effects because it was the fastest way to do it. But I love the fact that you really like, you sort of found this like gleaming blade texture that doesn't feel literal, but it doesn't feel like, okay, yeah, it's a typical energy weapon. So I think that's a really great, great choice. And it sort of makes the character feel smaller and the blade feel bigger. And I really like that effect.
Thanks.
I think the sort of like main thing of this, especially like this section, is like everything is really pushed, and I would like pull back in some places just to give it more, to give those bigger moments more impact,
Have more dynamics in the mix.
Yeah. So because I think that all the sounds are great. So it's like I wouldn't add anything. I would just subtract. I think in some places, like, the impacts sound really good. So you've got all these. That little like deflection though, she's not like cutting through anybody. It's just sort of like a blade. And so you've kind of got like the same texture in that deflection as you do in the strikes. And I think that could kind of be lighter. So it's a little bit more like, ding. And somebody put some really good, like almost like bullet, like ricochets in their thing, which I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Like, twing. But I think that, it's like you get a little bit of that and it's like, oh, this is blocking a shot. And then same thing here, like the hit, the strike of that deflection has this kind of big like in it. And I think I would save that for the explosion so that there's sort of a lightness and an anticipation there of like deflect, breath, boom, rather than sort of like adding that low end. And this is something that like, I feel like I give this critique really frequently of sort of like the big thing. It's like, for some reason, there's a tendency, I think, you want to like anticipate the big thing by setting up like, oh, look how big this is going to be. So you start bringing in a big thing. And I think actually kind of counterintuitively, it works best when you sort of go with the light thing and then the big thing comes out of nowhere. So you get more of that like breath. And I mean, that explosion's amazing. It's a crazy thermal detonator sound. All this stuff is really nice. I mean, I think, like that whole, this kind of back half, I feel like because of the way the scene is set up, it's got a lot of that ebb and flow in a really nice way. And there's a lot of like really good texture and detail in all these like, those attacks, really nice. I love the way that the shots feel very much in the background and her actions are very much in the foreground. I think that's a really great use of depth and sense of space. Yeah, and explosions is great. I mean, I wish honestly, and I kind of wish this in actual video, I wish there was like more time of the explosion, pause, breath, because there is so much cool detail in here. And I feel like you did a great job in, kind of evolving the explosion and including a lot of different colors. But yeah, I mean, I think nuts. When I first heard this, I was like, wow, this is going to be a crazy challenge. If everybody's like going this hard on it. So I think really, really great job. I think this is, once again, if I were to get this as a first pass, I'd be like, sweet, we're really on a good place. And I think that's really true of all of these. I mean, I think everyone did. Somebody was like, this is my first sound design ever. And I thought it was like pretty great. So yeah. What questions do you have, or do you want to talk at all about your process?
No, it was very interesting to hear about the judging the dynamics of the mix, like having loud moments and quiet moments. And that's something that I struggled a lot usually on redesigns, because I kind of want to make everything big and interesting. But it's when I see the beginning, the first two slashes, she's kind of far off the camera, and they would need to be a little more quiet and give a little more space for the loud part later on the video. But that was very, I mean, you pointed that you like the all of the lightsaber movement stuff. That was from one of the Juan Pablo from Bungie, I believe.
Yeah.
He made a tweet about how he found a cool technique with Trash 2, using the loop back feature on Reaper, and that's what I did for this challenge, for all of the saber movement, and that worked really well for this redesign. So that was the first thing that I made on this redesign. But I mean, the video was so fun to work on. Definitely one of my favorite challenge that we did on the Still Alive Discord server. So.
Well, this is great. I'm going to start my note here of like all the techniques that you guys are using that I need to steal. Let's see.
I wanted to ask Val, what technique you used to get this kind of original new lightsaber sound. There you go. It's Trash.
Yeah, that was from
Trash.
Juan Pablo's tweet.
Yeah.
Of course. That's amazing. Well, yeah, it really works, and I think it's really fun to see, new ideas like that, and even just like these kind of random challenges on Discord. It's like there's so many ideas out there that no one's ever gonna have all of them at once. So it's inspiring. It's really cool. Cool. Well, great. Yeah, great work. You do.
Thanks.
Do the next one.
Just want to say,
on my screen is
low frequency sounds are always so good. Like,
yeah,
you have so much low frequency content that's just so tasty every time. All of your designs.
Thanks.
So nice.
Yeah, very meaty. I mean, that's really, to me, it's like I wanted to open up more space between those moments, so it's like you can kind of be like, wow, that was a hit, and it's like if there's too many of them, you're like, you take it for granted, even though every single one is amazing. It's like if you don't have that, it's like, oh, I'm kind of looking for some low frequency. It's been a few seconds, and then there it is. You kind of like trick the listener into getting like addicted to your sounds, which I think is a really nice way to do it. Okay, so this is, who's next? Adam. Okay.
Would I be able to send you a link to a newer one? I have like the full clip done. It would just if that's okay.
Sure, yeah. You want to just like post it in that channel and I can download it?
Sure, I just tossed it in the chat here.
Sweet. Okay, yeah, that's perfect.
Sorry.
Right. No, it's no problem.
Because I was like moving in between this challenge, so I didn't want to like not get to it. So I posted my first half, and then I've since worked way too long on it.
Great. Let's see. I think it's done. Throw trailer design folder and share.
Now I'm intrigued, Adam.
Oh boy.
Yeah. What's this? What's this all about?
Yeah.
Let's see. Make sure I cut the right one. Great. 39. Okay. Yeah, it's amazing that so many people did the full clip, because it's a lot of work. Okay, so this is the 25 seconds. Perfect. All right, great. Well, I haven't heard this then. This will be exciting. Very nice. That's super fun. I love all of the like tech sounds are great, like these gunshots. There's that sort of like kind of weird, like kind of phasing and like comb filtering and stuff that's going on. Explosion. That's really got like kind of the stuff I've been talking about the evolving explosion, where you've got this hit, and then it's sort of like you get this fire and you get this kind of stuff around you. And then I really like the way that it kind of just, it dissolves into reverb in the distance. So you get that almost like, a cannon shot in the background or something. Yeah, really cool, really creative stuff. I mean, I think this one is sort of similar to Joao's, where there's like just some impacts that I'd like to hear more. And I wouldn't like really take anything away or change anything. I would just give it some more meat in some of those moments. So like, you know, they're great. I love the buildup. I love how you sort of focused entirely on that, the whoosh into it. But I would just give me something that sort of like really connects. It feels like that the blade is really connecting and chunking into this guy. The gunshots are great. I mean, like the impact's there, and I love this. Even there, I would take like a little bit more when she slices the rocket. Like, I love everything that's in there. There's like a distant reverbed out kind of like shing, but I would have just a little texture that's, you know, present because this is so close to the screen or to the camera,
Sure.
of that like deflection. But I love that sound, that kind of like, it sounds like somebody's unsheathing a blade in the distance. They're kind of same thing, you know, like a little nice like footstep, solid, right up in
My
the
Foley
center
was
camera.
last thing I did, so I didn't really get much time to work on it.
I know, and it's hard with footsteps, you know, it runs so fast, like here, you know, it's like you're trying to sync the timing and you're like, well, this doesn't even make any sense. Like her feet are moving 100 miles an hour. But I think it's, even if it's like wrong, even if you're just dropping in footsteps that are kind of like, yeah, vague and not really timed, it still is like a nice texture. I think that slash could have some more like, yeah, a little bit more, same that kind of heft, that low end stuff. That's really cool. Love that. Insane. How did you do these like kind of like, it feels like there's like weird stuff going kind of up and down the frequency spectrum.
For the it's kind of like a teleport dash.
Yeah, and then
I think
kind of like as she's ramping up to like there's stuff that's going on.
I think I just started with like white noise, and then probably I eventually got to like, I love the like air frequency shifter on Pro Tools for some reason. It's like
Nice.
I love it, so I use it all the time. But so there's something like that. There's definitely some pitching, and then into the frequency. It's I have a hard time remembering. I guess I could load up the session, but yeah, some sort of nonsense
frequency
happened
shifter
in between.
stuff on. Yeah, it's really cool, because I think that's one of the things, you know, instead of just putting a whoosh in there, it's like, what is that representing? I'm not totally sure, but it feels really good. You know, it's like, it's sort of, it fills the space in a way that like makes me excited to hear what's coming next. And I think that's a really nice,
because my idea there was like basically like ripping apart time, like almost wanted to like chop up the entire that's the kind of the vibe I wanted, like almost like you took razor blades to the final master there in those sections. But I felt like that would have been a bit too much, like, you know, say automating some volumes or something of whatever I ended up doing. So I wanted that same idea of like she's moving through this, like through some dimensional stuff.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. And it's definitely one of the things I would say is like, I think this type of character where there's sort of, you know, if you look at some of these frames, it's just like, what is happening? There's just kind of full screen chaos. Like, I think that there's more license in this. And maybe that's why, you know, as Chris was saying, like a lot of these tended towards the same thing, is because you sort of have license to just do whatever you want in some of these shots, anywhere in the frequency spectrum, anywhere in the stereo field, because her powers are so crazy that like time and space are bending and going nuts. So it's been really fun. I think people got really creative, and I think sometimes I will be critical of redesigns, or, you know, or even just stuff that I get at the studio, if it doesn't match what's happening on screen really well. If the stereo field is like, it's too wide, or it's like, hey, why is that thing that's, you know, way off in the distance filling the stereo field? But I think this clip is so cool because it's just kind of chaos, and I think you leaned into that in a really nice way. So I think just punctuating it more with some of those like really nice hits, with some good low end would be awesome, and then you'd be there. So, you know, once again, great stuff.
I think I chose not to do it as much like as much low end on the attacks, because I feel like in your clip it in the final it wasn't like compare the final to Val's, which is very meaty. And I didn't want it too heavy, but I agree there should be something else, but too heavy because the weapon itself isn't like huge, you know.
No, and I think that's one of the things that's really interesting about Val's clip, is that the weapon, because there's so much like high end and because it's so like shiny, it does make everything feel heavier. Like it feels more like Mortal Kombat or something. But I actually thought it really worked. Obviously, I chose to keep things pretty light because it's like an actual character. But I thought it was really interesting how well it worked, because it basically made it feel like she's tiny, she's small and fast, but the weapon is really kind of crazy powerful and doing stuff that you're like, my God, she's ripping people to shreds. So I think it's definitely an interesting balance. But I think that there's probably too much low end overall in that clip that it does make her, it kind of drags her down a little bit. But there's absolutely a balance that I think could go heavier than what I did and what you did. So yeah, I'm really interested to kind of get to the other clips and see like how they kind of managed that sense of speed, but also and kind of gracefulness, but also the impact, because it's a really tricky balance for sure.
Can I ask a question in between?
Mm-hmm.
You said that you were looking at more redesigns. So obviously, I guess people send you some things maybe to apply at Hard Machine or something. Do you generally look more into redesigns that feel like they could be in the game, or like redesigns that are, over the top, really made for the clip, like a linear medium? Because you could go two ways here. Either it is
right
over the top and really juicy, or in a game context, you probably would be fatigued really quickly. So what are you looking for?
To me, it's actually what's more important is the story and the arc, I think, of any clip. And it sort of doesn't matter what it is, as long as, like, what I kind of want to see is that the designer has an understanding of what are the important moments. And the important moments are important in gameplay. They're important in, a cinematic clip. I think if you have like a clip of whatever, some kind of like 3D action game, and the character is like drinking a potion and it's like go 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 go, and full health, that's sort of like, that's not right. Like, we all know that, like, if you've ever played a video game, you know that drinking a potion and being restored to your health is a pretty light action. And so even if it's like sounds amazing, I tend to kind of, that's a red flag for me. And the same thing in linear clips, like this is obviously not gameplay, right? We all know this is not gameplay. But if somebody gave me this clip and it sounded amazing, but it was just like absolutely all out the entire time, so that by the end of the clip, when I see the explosion, I'm like, no big deal, then that's also a red flag. It's basically like finding the moments, because you're always going to find moments, whether it's linear or it's gameplay. Even a cinematic, a 3-minute cinematic in a Blizzard game is going to be fatiguing also by the end of it, if you're going all in all the time. So I think there's almost no circumstance where I would go all in, and I would, if I was like picking clips to do redesigns for, I would pick clips that showcased my ability to have a whole thing hang together. Like, here's my 30 seconds. There's even though there's space in the clip in terms of action, there's not space in terms of the sound design. Like, I've found ways to keep those small moments alive and have breath, ambience, little details of Foley, which I think a lot of people did really a great job in this clip. There's moments where there's less going on, but they still managed to add powers, Foley, reverb. So I think that's really important, is showing the big and the small, because you've got to do it all. Like, there's nobody in sound design who's just going to do explosions, unless you're, I guess, working on Call of Duty. Maybe there's a explosion only sound designer, but for the most part, you're going to have to do all these different moments and create the arcs yourself. So that, and it's definitely something I'll talk about, like, as we go through the clips. I'll probably mention quite a few times this sort of like the build up to the explosions and the explosions themselves, like creating that space, giving the moments of like anticipation. I think that's really what it is like, creating space gives you anticipation, in the same way that like a horror movie, the creepy part where it's just the strings going is like the scariest of anything, because you're just like, oh God, what's happening next? So I think as a sound designer, you want to have those moments, so that you're not just like slamming through and people kind of lose track of like how they're supposed to feel. So yeah, let's look at, I think, like, Yannick is next on the screen. Every time I share my screen, I have to like go say, yes, I do want to see all the participants. Oh crap, and now I can't even find that menu. Whatever, okay.
Yep.
All right, Zoom. All right, I'm glad the video sharing is working now. All right, so
it's Yannick next, right?
yes.
Okay.
Yes, so let's check it out. That's what gets me every time. I love that so much. The gong. Great. Yeah, this is a great clip. I feel like it's like kind of got it all. Let's see, I really do want to get the, how do I show everybody? Never mind. I guess it's not worth it. Yeah, I mean, it's such a crisp. Oh, here we go. Show video panel. Such a crisp and like sort of well. The overall sound has like a really naturalistic quality to it, which I really like. I think my favorite kind of clips are the ones that have really solid like Foley, but then also have the weird powers. And I think this one does some really great stuff with like the rock, like this rocket sound. All sorts of stuff going on there. And then there's, you know, and then the nice like kind of space and that explosion has really got a sort of like a nice realism to it. I think it's like really there's like a few moments that we, you know, could use some more heft. I think is a big one. Like that's nice. I think it could use a little bit more like you know, thump to the chest, that impact there as well. I love it's so splashy, which is visually what happens. We actually had somebody write us and was like, yeah, I can't remember what is it misophonia, where you have like an aversion to sort of like chewing sounds and like liquid. Really? And they were like, I could not watch this trailer. It just was too liquidy. And I was like, I got what I got. Like, look at, you know, look at this freeze frame and tell me that this is not like liquid.
Splashy.
I would say that there's this moment tends, you know, I would add another layer or two in there to give it something that is, so that the splash is sort of the secondary after the, you know, a real like gib splash. But I mean, it's great. Like these people getting ripped apart, you know, has a nice texture to it. I think this is a moment where, as we were saying before, it's like, I think some reverb, because these guys are further in the background and there's sort of a lull in the action. There'd be a great moment of like right there, there's sort of, you've got an ambience in there that's really nice. But I think that having, you know, some little like, oh yeah, those guys are gone, I'm not even thinking about them anymore. And then suddenly we get this guy in the foreground who's firing at us, I think would be a really nice, like, just little subtle detail. Rocket is great. Maybe his fire could use just a poof when he actually launches the rocket. Otherwise, this is a great thing. Love that. Great. I like this. The sound of these boots on this metal is really nice. I think this one, this is where I get like super nitpicky. I think it goes a little too far to the right. That boot Foley.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I would get really particular about like stereo field stuff, and that's just sort of like, it's like really nice. You tracked it really well. It's a little bit.
That's a good note.
That moment here could use same thing as the earlier kind of splash. Like, I think just hearing that impact. This is a tough one. I think this, like, a lot of people sort of reacted the same way to this moment, which is like, it's kind of like she's going through as though it's just nothing. But I think that the blade, like the way that I thought about it is the blade like instantly superheats and then like explodes the body, so that there's still impact, even though it's really fast. It's just like zoop, up, the body cavity is like superheated gases, boom, explode, so that you kind of get that pop, that
impact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I found that second movement quite challenging, to be honest, because like with that sort of anime style, it always seems it's never really literal. Kind of like how you explained that, you know, tracking those footsteps, after a while I gave it up to sync it to picture, right? I just
put something in that sounded sort of cool, and then
yeah, it sounds
it at
better
that.
almost if you don't sync it to picture, because it's also, you'll have, you know, you've got frames like these where it's like, where are her feet actually? She might even be like blurred out, where it's like, she has like 2 legs, you know, and it's just too confusing. So I think, you know, in some of these moments, it's like you do have to get less literal with it and be like, it looks like she's going through it so easily, but let's come up with like a sci-fi explanation for what this weapon is actually doing to the body. Great, I love this. I think this maybe was the one where I was like, oh, the cape works so well when you get up here. Fluttering cape, kind of this like, and then the impact, really great. I love both of those, like Adams and Yannick's both work great. It's like, as I said, it's like, doesn't matter what you do, because it's so crazy. Either you focus on the literal, or you kind of create in your own mind, like whatever, you know, you want to be happening conceptually. It all works. It's great. And then, yeah, Explosion has that really nice, like, kind of initial impact and then burst afterwards. And then you got the texture, you know, the little details of the, like, the embers flying around. Really nice explosion. It's funny that so many people cut their clip off before this little thing. That's like my favorite. Like, how do you handle this little flip? And then I think this is a nice one. It feels a little stereo wide, and like there's not something super like mechanical in the middle that kind of connects that. Like I would almost want like one more layer, or maybe bring in the stereo width on the but it's a nice, like, makes sense kind of from a textural perspective. But that's a tricky one too, because it's like, once again, you don't see, there's nothing, or it's like confusing what happens there. There's light, and then the whole thing is just collapsed. So it's like, maybe there's energy and mechanics happening. I don't know where these little like circles come from around her hand. It's like, who knows? So,
and I hear it now, and it's kind of obvious. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with the with the switching off. So like I went to something lightsaber-y thingy, but it lacks a bit direction, I guess.
Yeah, and just sort of that like tactile. I think that's the thing that's easy to lose in these kind of crazy sci-fi anime things, is like, you still want that connection, that tactile connection with the real world, even if you've got crazy stuff going on all over you. But yeah, great. I mean, great work. I think there's tons of really cool ideas in here. And, you know, feels like definitely a really complete thought that like, you know, as with all of them, it's like, if I got this as a first pass, we would get to a great place in an iteration or two. So really great work.
Thank you.
All right, let's see. We've got Cecilia Garcia, I believe is SAG, is the video clip. Yes. Awesome. Okay, let me get my video panel. All right, let's check it out. Awesome. Yeah, so I mean, got this sort of like Val style, great low end, great like energy. I'm just gonna listen again because I don't think I've listened to this one too much. That's okay. So this is sort of, same sort of idea here, is these, you know, all this stuff, like, I don't know, feels great. This like first few seconds, the slashes, like, it's got a lot of meat to it, all sorts of cool textures. The first thing that sort of stands out to me is the gunshots have a sort of like a low end quality and a bigness and a space. Like it feels like there's like a good amount of reverb that sort of, when the rocket fires off, the rocket's almost like smaller than the gunshots. And I think like, just to give the sense of threat to the player, well, it's not a player, but to the, you know, the hero, I think that the player's weapon should feel smaller, so that when the rocket comes, it's like, oh, wow, like I sort of brought a knife to a gunfight. Like now there's this insane rocket, you know, being launched at me, the sense of danger. So I'd maybe tighten up the shots, you know, make those go a bit more, and then rocket sounds great. And then here, sort of similar comments to, I think to Val's, where you get the, like, this is, I mean, it's great. The searing screech of this deflection is amazing. Then you've kind of got this, there's like a lot of action, like sort of busyness, like kind of leading up to this explosion. And I think this would be a good time to, like, you could even have the same detail, but really filter it up high, so there's less low frequencies, so that it kind of creates this like rather than boom, which it all kind of like feels in the same frequency range. So I think like providing a little bit more space there, and also like explosion's great. I love this, like coming out of that cloud, the way that the stereo field kind of expands. It really feels like almost like the air is being like pushed by the hero like towards the camera, and it's sort of coming out and enveloping you. I think here, just at the very tail end, we could have some, again, like a little bit more space and suspense. Like once she hits the top of her jump, there's kind of a lot of like crackling and stuff going on in the stereo field, and kind of like lightening up on that so that the landing has some more impact would be really nice. So I mean, really, all I would do is like kind of pull back. Like, I mean, you could even leave all the sounds in there, but just sort of like pull back on the frequencies, on the low frequencies in those moments, so that some of these like bigger impacts hit harder. But I mean, I wouldn't really change anything of the designs. I think all the sounds are awesome and really like, you know, energetic, and creating kind of the stuff we've been talking about of like, I don't know, you know, I don't know why there's like stuff going on there, but it feels so good, you know? It's just like, great, yeah, perfect, nailed it. So I think like, it's like, it works really well in those spots, and then it's just like finding the places where you can kind of pull back, so that the impacts really hit. But I mean, yeah, I think that's awesome work. Was there anything that you?
No, I didn't know what to put there, what you said, where you said that you don't know what's going on, but I didn't know. I watched it many times. So I put some.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, the first pass I did of this was like years ago, and then I did kind of a like we changed some of the timing, and I did the original I did to the animatic, which was very like pencil sketch, and then, you know, as they fleshed it out, more details came in, and I actually ended up just adding. In fact, I'll show you, like, because you kind of lose it in the music version, but I rendered like the just sound effects. Basically, I just put in a bunch of stuff like in places, because I had the exact same. Oh, it's unsupported. Never mind. But I had the same problem where it's like, if you want it to feel cooler, even though there's nothing happening on screen that necessarily like requires that you do it. I think that adding the sort of texture, and as though there's like mechanics in her suit that are working, you know, there's some, or her weapon is like kind of, you know, powering up to do its thing. It's like, we don't know. Yeah. And that's, you know, when you're asking Chris about the redesign stuff, it's like, if a designer can just make things that I think are justified, I'm totally happy that they're adding that to the story. If that, you know, if they want to add heaviness or powers or whatever to the scene, and it feels like that makes sense, like I believe that that's actually happening in the world, then I always think that's great. So I think you did an awesome job with that, Cecilia, where it's like, it all feels like justified. The only thing is that just from a pure mixing standpoint, you don't want to like take away from the big moments, because all your explosions and heavy stuff is great. So you just want to give them space to breathe.
And actually, at the beginning, I did only the first part before the rocket. So then when I did the rocket, I should have lowered down the first one.
Right, yeah, you go back. And, I mean, and that's the thing, is like the context of the clip changes over time. So it's, you know, the more that you get into the full arc, you might have to go back and change. Oh, now there's an explosion at the end. The explosion has to be the biggest thing. Everything else in the clip needs to come down a little bit, or I need to find my big moments that were big, pull them down just a little bit so that the explosion still has the most impact. But I think, you know, very small tweaks and you'd have something really great here. So I mean, it's great as it is. So excellent work. Cool. All right, let me get to the next clip here, which I did.
Is it Joby Joba?
Yeah, I swear to God, I downloaded this, but let me just go. I can just get it from the Discord.
I have a new version actually that I just a few tweaks, but it's here on YouTube. I'm not sure if that helps or if you need it somewhere else.
Do you have a link to it that I can download? I'm not sure if I can.
Maybe I can put it on the Discord.
Yeah. Yeah, if you just throw it up on the Discord, then I can download it. I might be able to like stream YouTube, but I don't know. This is my first like real Zoom
I'm not
sharing.
Sure if it's the right export because of the M4V. Yeah, it's just M4V. I'm sorry. It's just.
Yeah, well, let me try it. Let me see if it works.
Yeah, sorry about that. Otherwise.
Did you export it out of Reaper?
Yeah, and I'm actually learning.
Then you can just rename it to MP4. That's fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me see if I try. Oh, that might be why it's not showing up. Because it's in the folder, but oh yeah, yours was WebM, the first one that I had from you. Okay, so let me see. Now if I just name it MP4, let's try that.
Yeah, it should work.
Okay. All right, great. Oh, nice. Now we're talking. Great. All right, well, once again, this is fun because I haven't heard this full version. Let's go. Beautiful. So much cool stuff there. One of the things I noticed that's really fun, and I did the exact same thing, is like making the laser fire from the enemies kind of liquidy, which sadly that guy that wrote us said that even that stuff was like triggering for him. It's like, but it sounds so cool. But I love the it's like the texture of when you're over here and it's like it sounds so organic in a way that I think is really cool and like really, unique, really original. I think all of the like kind of tech lasery stuff in here is awesome. I could use a touch more. I think you did a really good job like with the sharpness of these impacts. Could use a touch more low end, I think, on those impacts, just to kind of give them a little bit more like the chest kicking kind of attitude.
Yeah.
I really love the way that the whoosh and just like kind of silences everything. Like that's a moment that I don't think I did that. I don't think anybody else did that, where you kind of created space in this like pretty small little moment here by like silent anticipation and then bam. A lot of really cool, like this is a lot of good decisions, as I was saying earlier about like kind of creating arcs and stories. It's like you took the opportunity to create a lot of arcs and stories and tell things. You've got like shots in here that aren't on screen where it's like, why am I hearing lasers? Oh, because there's lasers off screen. Totally buy it. Like that totally makes sense to me. Great. Love this stuff. Here, this is, and there's like a couple spots in here where I think it's like some whooshes, some reverb, some other arbitrary stuff would be nice to glue these things together. I think this is a moment where like, it's a nice anticipation, but I feel like maybe even his footsteps having some reverb on him so that it feels sort of like he feels more alone, where it's like these guys die and then he shuffles his feet and it's like, wow, he is all alone in this huge cavern. Oh shit, now he's firing a rocket at me, like to kind of like, pull your attention away and then back in, I think would again tell like an even cooler story there. That's great. Maybe a little bit more on the rocket fire. I think that it feels like that rocket. This is a very wide sound. Sounds great when he fires the rocket, but I think having something like center that just has the of the rocket launching would make it feel more threatening. I love this, the thing, crazy, love it. The explosion's great. What is this sort of just like a pitch bent like shing kind of?
You mean the rocket? Yeah.
Well, it's like when she like slashes it, it goes like. It's like
it's just like I had a lot of source materials, and when I found this one, I thought it would fit well on this side.
Great. Yeah, really like, yeah, creative. Love that. Love the Foley of her like coming out here. I think this is another moment where reverb on the footsteps, more cape, more whooshing. Yeah, it's just like those are dry and there's kind of nothing else going on. Alex, our director, actually like pushed me to up the reverb on the steps, and there's a part of this clip that we don't have at the very beginning where she's like walking and it's a way elevated shot. And Alex really wanted like every footstep to just be like like just cavernous echo.
Okay.
I think that's a really nice effect, like in these moments, kind of ride the reverb fader up, then you can bring it back down.
Space.
But yeah, it's just sort of show the sense of space, like play with the listener's perception of like, oh right, we're in a huge space now, I forgot, like, oh okay, now it's back to the task at hand. It's almost like you're in the mind of this hero, and like she's doing all this crazy stuff and then lands and is like, oh, all right, back to it, like, okay, I'm in a real space, and then she kind of gets focused again. These are really great. I love the like meatiness. A little bit more low end, I think, and that would be great, but the texture and the hits are great. Super fun. I think that's a little too heavy, this dash. It's a great sound, but I think it has more low end than the explosion itself. So I would just keep the sound as it is, but just scoop some of that low end. And then explosion, awesome. I love the way you've done this electric stuff, but I think just more low end hit impact on just like the moment of the explosion would be great.
Yeah.
And then all this other detail is awesome. Nuts. I love this kind of.
Thank you. Yeah, I really struggled with the low end because like I felt like it was lacking low end, and I tried like to add some air bass or stuff like that, and it was still not enough. So
I just use 808s. That's like, and it's probably because I come from music, and so like all of my solutions are music solutions.
Okay.
But I just put in 808s, and you can roll off like. There's different types of 808s, but you can roll off the attack. You can find some that are more subtle, or you can find some that have a lot of like pop at the beginning, and then you can kind of like chisel them down, so it's just like, and that's it. But just that like hit will, because it's hard to make frequencies with R bass and stuff like that aren't really there if you don't have, and there's not that many sources that are like, they're too fluffy. Like explosions are too fluffy usually. If you get like an explosion pack, they're very like. And you really want like, you want that smack. So I think just like be cheeky with it and put like a drum machine in there, and that gives you that hit. And then all the rest of the explosion sound. Really nice. Like I think again that you could maybe linger. There was that other clip that had like the explosion kind of went off into the distance, like had this reverb tail on it. I think that would be nice here to like, it sort of fades away pretty quickly. Kind of dead there. I think if we heard it lingering, that'd be cool. This is great. Same problem where it's like the last sound of it coming in is a little too wide, and there's not enough like tactile stuff in the middle. But all easy tweaks. All the ideas are there, and I think it's a great clip.
Thank you.
Great work. Yeah, everybody really like killed this challenge. Very, very impressive.
I had a question just because when I heard your take, I know like the music is like taking a lot of space, but the thing that really stood for me was like the squishiness of all the people when he cuts to the people, and I was wondering how you did that, because it sounds like synthesized, but at the same time it's really organic. So I don't know, like how you
it
did
sucks
this.
that my little render doesn't work, so I can't like play, because it's like I want to play the those details, you know, without the music so you guys can hear it. But I basically, let me just listen to it on my own real quick so I can remember what I did. Yeah, so it's a lot of vegetable stuff. I think it's the His and Aurora vegetable pack. And so there's
vegetable violence.
Yeah, like vegetable violence. And so it's just a lot of like shrimp, watermelons, whatever, you know, squash. And I think, you know, one of the things I like to do with gore and stuff like that is have, you've got the impact, and then afterwards, like after you get the initial smack, then you sort of bring in the like vegetable, you know, the ripping carrots in half or celery or whatever. And then there's sort of like a splash that's more watery. Like there was one of the clips earlier where it was like very liquidy. I would sort of like have impact, really like focused close crunch into water, so that it's almost like you imagine the blade like having these phases of going through, to kind of create that story like through time. So I think a lot of it, like a lot of the reason why my crunchiness like comes through a lot is because it takes up a lot of space actually, like through time. Like the hit might be like half a second long of like so yeah, I think if you kind of like, if you try to give it, and once again, it might not even be represented on screen. Like I might have gore after there's any gore visible, but it's sort of the idea that like, okay, she cuts to this person, she's already moved on to the next thing over here, but there's still like just blood kind of hanging in the air over here. It's like you can kind of just create that narrative yourself of like, yeah, there's a bunch of guts that are flying through space, and it takes them a second to like get through space and then fall down. So I think, yeah, giving it some time, and then yeah, not being afraid to use really like gruesome stuff, you know, just go for it, is definitely the way to go.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, great work.
Thanks.
So we've got Marlon. Let's see. Marlon, what is your Discord?
Marlon doesn't have one. He's
he's just hanging out.
Yeah, he's hanging out. He's from our company. He's just interested in
cool. All
so
right,
far
well,
I've heard your, like, the way you give feedback is amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
There's nothing to learn already. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure. Yeah, really appreciate you guys hosting this thing. Okay, so next one, Angelo or Angelo, however, how do you pronounce your name?
Angelo's fine. It's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's check it out. God, the initial sound like physically makes me go like, whoo, just like so epic. I mean, God. I mean, I think, yeah, this has definitely got the in the like Val category of like everything fucking rules, but you know, maybe there's like moments to pull back, just to create space for, and it's so crisp, like these. Even like those shots, like the laser shots, are like super crisp. I love the just like intensity of the whole thing. I think it's usually here, you know, for whatever reason, it's like, I think that this stuff works when you're going really hard in the first 5 seconds. It's always just like, wow, amazing, and then it's around this time when if you do, you know, keep up that energy, that it starts to, you're starting like your ears kind of looking for places to have some breath. I think like that hit, like this person just gets blown away, like the size of that gunshot, or it's really actually it's not the shot, it's like them being blown away. That's huge. I think it's a great sound, but it's kind of a cool take, because it's not gib forward, it's like blast forward. But I think that could kind of lighten up, I think, some of these like this moment in here, because these guys are getting shot like at a further distance away. Yeah, there's a lot of this. I mean, it's amazing. Like this like whipping sound is so cool. But I would just take all of that, everything that's happening to these guys in the background, and just sort of like pull it back, you know, put a room or some kind of reverb on it, and just sort of pull it back like 30 or 40% away from the camera, so that you sort of have this, because the sounds are so good, I don't want to lose any of the sounds, but I want that sense of space of like, all right, now stuff's happening over there. Okay, now back to this guy who's firing this rocket, which is a great sound. And I think same for the rocket. Well, actually, let me just make sure that I agree with it. I think you can decide, but I would pick either this rocket moment to lighten, like keep the sound as it is, but just pull out some of the lower frequencies, or like that moment there. I think like one of those moments needs space. I mean, the funny thing is like everybody's clips are different, and so the moments of space, like the rocket could be what provides the sort of breath here, and then this moment could be harder, or I think the rocket could be harder, and then I would lighten this little space up. That's a great sound, that deflection. I think there's just like a little bit too much heft in there before that explosion happens. And I love the way the blade kind of sparkles at the top of this. Shing! Is a very, very nice, like that's one of those things where I'm like, I can't believe I didn't do that. And I would even like verb it out more, like let it, I actually did it in the beginning, which is not in this this clip, but like where she kind of opens her blade up and then it says heart machine, and we like just verbed out, it was like shing, heart machine, you know, is like you've got this sort of like, again, it's telling that story of like anticipation. I think this is a really great moment where it gets to the top, shing, it kind of like keeps that idea of like she's about to kick ass for like the next, you know, 3 seconds or whatever, while there's not much going on. That's like another like good glue trick that I've not thought about and no one else has done until now. But yeah, I think really it's just like kind of the typical like creating a little bit more space. Man, the sounds are so cool. What was the sort of origin of these, of the blade sounds, like all this kind of like, because it kind of sounds almost like they're like jets, you know, like when she's like pulling out the weapon, it's like really, really like intense, like air pressure stuff going on.
There was just a lot of layers of like general sci-fi like sound library stuff, but
nice.
like, you know, I basically shaped it in a way where like that was the energy, and I made sure the little shing sounds were the accent that you needed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
it was hard to really, like you said, it's just so much. I definitely went into over design category here, but
I mean, it's great. It's honestly though, it's so easy to pull back. Like if you have the good sounds, and I think that's one of the things that I really was like just kind of globally impressed by, is that people really pushed themselves on the sort of power design and the weapons and like, you know, the rockets. Like I think that everything sounding really distinct is the best starting place you can possibly be, and then pull back super easy. You just go in and it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, the sound is cool, like just chisel out some low frequencies here, like, you know, think about like, you know, if you just kind of globally for the chat, it's like you go through this process and you're like, what's, in fact, I'll mute it and just be like, what is the moments that we really care about? That's a pretty big hit. That's not that big. That's a big hit. That's, you know, these are kind of in the distance. Oh, that's a big deal. That's a huge deal. And so it's like you kind of look at it and just go like, all right, that's a huge deal. This needs to have the most low end, if that's the way that you're gonna, you know, highlight stuff, which I think it probably is. Stereo field, frequency spectrum, you know, reverb. There's a lot of ways to highlight stuff, but I think if low end kind of, you can't escape like low end making things sound important. So that's really the trick, is going through and being like, these are the most important moments. What does my frequency spectrum look like across this? Like, do I see that bump in those moments? You know, I want to see that every big hit. So yeah, super easy. I don't think it would take you long to kind of massage those things into shape. And then there would be, this would be a nuts a nuts thing to have. I hope people like put these clips in their like sound design reels, because there's a lot of really great work in here. So yeah, once again, great job. Do you have any other questions or anything?
Not really, no.
Cool.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Holy schnitzel. Oh, I've been missing the chat. Cool. So who else? Let's see, we've got like Ariel. I think this is maybe the last one of who we've got in the chat. So let's get through it. This is a short one. Nice, awesome. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of another example of like everything that's there is great. Needs glue, basically. You know, I think like it's like I really like that like kind of strange low end. It's like an inversion of importance, but in a really cool way, where you're building tension with this like bubbling, and then the shot itself is really light, and it's kind of like, I don't know, has like an Indiana Jones quality of like the guy doing all the moves and then Indiana Jones just shoots him. So it's sort of like, oh yeah, it's actually so casual. Boom, boom. Let me just like take these people out. And I think, you know, here it's like you start to see the space. You just sort of want like some reverb in there, some more like Foley, some more, you know, guts flying around. Some anticipation here, like the guy like shuffling his feet, Foley to kind of get ready. I really like that. I love the rhythm of this rocket. Like, I'm not sure anybody, including myself, like really had that. Like, it kind of creates more of a sense of suspense almost, because it gets a rhythm that you like get sucked into, and then oh, there it goes. Nice explosion too. It might have a little bit more. Oops. I can't. It's like I feel like I hear a little bit of like junk, and I don't mean that like from a sound. I mean that from a literal perspective of like metal, or there's like something in that sound that I don't feel like is represented in the screen. Like in the shot, maybe that the justification is that you're blowing up the bridge itself, and there's like chunks of it. And then you didn't really like do any Foley stuff there, so that's kind of the clip. But yeah, I mean, I think everything that's there is great, and I would just like kind of look around and see what else is happening on the screen, and flesh it out. And you know, her cape here is like a lot of really cool motion. You've got a really good sound in the background, but like just to give us something in the foreground. So that's it. I mean, great job. Let's see, where was that? If I remember correctly, metal. Yeah, the metal sound. I mean, it's like it almost works perfectly. There's just like something that kind of hits my ear that makes me go like, wait a minute, what's that like dress or, you know, metal chest like rattling around back there or something. But I think it's a really nice, you know, it's got the right like impact and stuff. Yeah, E, can you send me yours as a video so that I can play it? Because I was trying to download it off YouTube, but it all right. I wonder if I can like try to be professional and imagine that I got this from a sound designer.
How many sound designers are you at Heart Machine? Just you?
No, so I actually I started as a sound designer, and then on Solar Ash, I ended up becoming the audio lead, and I was doing mostly music. I did most of the soundtrack. And so we brought on a guy, Alex Johnson, who had just finished Ori and The Will of the Wisps. And so he came on to help kind of finish out Solar, and he did most of the sound design that shipped on Solar. And then I just recently kind of stepped back as audio lead because my girlfriend works on movies, and we end up all over the world. Like I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico right now. It's not where I live. But it was too hard to do meetings in Australia time and London and wherever we were. So I'm just kind of focusing on music and doing ambiences on Hyperlight Breaker. But this is before Alex Johnson even joined the studio when this initial like animatic was created for this. So I did the sound design for this, and then Joel Corlitz, who's another composer that works with us, did the music for the trailer. So yeah, so I don't get to do all this feedback as much anymore since I'm not the audio lead. So you guys are really letting me flex my muscle that I don't normally get to flex. E, can you send me the video file for that? Is that possible? Because I don't know if I can stream from YouTube with audio. Maybe I can, but I'm not sure. Aha. Okay, this is great. All right, this is gonna be world class. You really did like the whole video too. Let's see. All right. Audio rework. I was like, is that the right file? Okay. All right. All right, here we go. The masterpiece. All right, so we're going to evaluate this in terms of storytelling. So we'll see how Yi's instincts are for like what she included and did not include.
Bling, bang.
Boom.
Bling.
Boom. Thud. Boom. Whoa, whoa.
Shink.
Oh man, so good. So
the only one with vocalizations, I might add.
Yeah, I mean,
Like
it's
that.
funny because I just listened to mine and I was like, oh wow, so much of the design was like the voices and the sort of like rah, and blah, whatever. There's a lot of that stuff in there, and that's just like too much work for a short sound design challenge. But it is kind of funny to be like, oh yeah, okay. So the first thing that stands out to me is that you've got this great boom sound, but it's the exact same boom sound 3 times. And I think that you would need to pick the final explosion. I would beef up your boom. So you've got
boom,
Bling.
boom.
So that first, basically, I would lighten up this first boom, and then this. So this would be more like boom,
Bling.
boom. That's a good boom. And then here for the final boom,
boom.
I would do like a kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like really like go for it. Maybe layer some booms in, so that you've got that sort of like that progression through the track. This one could use a hit. I think it's not quite. That's a good layer, but I would get a nice thwack kind of thing. That's great. Genius. This is genius. I mean, absolutely brilliant. The pew pew pews.
Boom.
Magnificent.
Boom.
The plank there. Let her jump. Now what's going on here?
Thud.
Thud. That's great. Yeah, I can't complain.
Thud.
Pitta pitta pitta. Yeah, that's almost like the best footsteps. They're so synced to the. That could be maybe messier. Get a little more. Just to kind of fill that in. That's great. Pew pew again. I love the jumps. She might need a little power sound here. This is amazing. That's great. Syncs perfectly. No critiques at the end. It's flawless. But overall, I would say
thank you.
Great work. Yeah, that's fabulous.
I mean, we're laughing about it, but if we ripped off all like the effects from mine, like that's a lot of what mine sounds like. Like I use my voice for like the gunshots and stuff. It's like.
Yeah, we were just like obviously when he posted that in the Hard Machine Slack, everyone was laughing about it, and then me and Alex Johnson were both just like here's actual things that we have like sent around the audio team, you know, mouth sound things. I'm pretty proud of my mouth sound videos. Like they convey a lot. I mean, I think what's fun is like, this is actually, there's very little in here where I'm like, oh, you missed this sound. Like, oh yeah, this need, like when you just sort of go through with your voice, like it can actually teach you a lot about what's important and sort of, you know, what needs to be highlighted. And yeah, it's a really useful tool. So great work. Well done, everybody. It was awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Like, I mean, Chris, you were talking earlier about the fact that the point of this is like to kind of help people, you know, with whatever feedback about their reels or suggestions of like how to apply or things like that. Are there, you know, do people have questions about that kind of stuff, or did you have any questions about Heart Machine or otherwise?
I think we would sit here 3 more hours.
Well, we could time box it to 5 minutes or something. Quick.
Chris, I have a quick
question. No, go Adam, go.
How much of the lineage of the first game, like the lineage of sound from the first game, made it into the second, into this new version, into this new game?
Yeah. Not that much, to be honest. So now the studio is, Alex Johnson is the audio lead. We brought in Akash, who did the first game, to just as a sound designer, and he's been doing a great job. And then me and Joel and Sky Lou are working on music. And so, you know, the sound design team is 50% original Hyperlight Drifter, but the audio doesn't sound that much like Drifter. It's so different. The game is so different. I think, as Chris was saying, like this really called out for like a very specific aesthetic, and I think you guys all did that, and so did I. And I think it'd be silly to go in and be like, no, it has to be like chunky, like bit crushed, you know, weird reverb. Like Hyperlight Drifter is just such a distinct thing, and I think that Breaker is very different. And I think that I'm really happy with where we're at from a sound design perspective now with the game. Like, I think we're pretty happy with where we're at musically as well, but I think the sound design is like really fitting the world, feeling right in the world. And we just didn't really reference Drifter that much because it was just such a different, when you're in 3D and everything, you know, different kind of art style and everything. So, you know, I probably would have liked, the way that I did this trailer was crazy because it was like, this was made for a publisher pitch, and it was just Sean Ward, who's our animator, that did it by himself. So the original was like black and white, super sketchy. Alex wrote me and was like, can you do this? And I was like, it's December 31st. Like, when do you want it? And he's like, I don't know, tomorrow. Oh my God. So like before I went to my New Year's gathering, I just like knocked it out. So I think if I had more time, I would have been like, let's reference more of like Drifter sounds. Let's do this, let's do that. But you know, I kind of just did the first thing that came to me. And I think, you know, you guys did as well. And I think it works really well with the clip. So I think you have to sort of acknowledge like that certain videos cry out for very specific sounds and just give them what they want, you know.
How did your process look like for finding the art style? I mean, if you gathered all the sound team and then said, what do we do? Let's put aside Drifter.
Yeah.
We have a clean slate. How did you go step by step into shaping the sound style?
Yeah, we did. We had a lot of like, so the team, this game started like a year before Solar shipped. And so the whole audio team was on Solar Ash, and there was a team working on this game for like a year, developing the art style, doing all this stuff. So we came in and everyone was like, all right, well, we're like in production now. And we're like, we've done nothing. I did a pass actually on the like very first vertical slice like 2 years ago. And I just kind of did whatever. So we basically came to it with like absolutely nothing ready, with the team just sort of running out ahead of us. So the first like several months, like basically the first half of this year, was basically just us like throwing plugins in the Slack channel, being like, what about this? Like, it feels like this might be cool. Like, hey, we're trying, and just kind of trying stuff. and it's kind of true for music and sound. Like basically the whole audio team, just everybody was just spitballing stuff, like wave folders. Let's try a wave folder on stuff. Hey, I'm really loving like granular stuff right now. And I think we sort of all just like pushed, because we have a really like pretty like crack team, like a lot of really, really smart people on the audio team, everybody just contributing a couple things, and then everybody else filtering that and being like, that one sounds a little bit too sci-fi, but this, wow, that's pretty freaking cool. Let's go down that direction. Hey, tape, does anybody have a good tape plugin? Like, oh, that's cool. Hey, if you abuse it this way, it sounds really neat. Like we just kind of, everybody just kept pitching stuff. And then I think we've only in the last like month have we sort of found something where the music and the sound design together in the game start feeling really good. And you're like, aha, they're different. The music and the sound sort of have different textures, but they fit together in a really nice way. And the sound sort of floats on top of the music. And so God, it's June. So it was 6 months, you know, basically December to now that it took to like just sort of chisel that away. But yeah, there's no other than just like think about it a lot, put the work in, have a lot of people. I think, you know, the composers, like neither me and Joel are full time, and we could either one of us could probably do the whole soundtrack ourselves, but the fact that we have just more brains on it is really, really useful. And I think like all these ideas, like I could go back and redesign my version of this clip, and I would steal like 12 ideas from the people that just kind of knocked this out in a week, you know. So even though I'm able to give feedback on every one of these clips, I was not able to come up with all these ideas, you know, myself. So I think that having more brains on it is just really, really useful, and sharing and getting feedback and developing things together is like kind of how we found a sound that feels unique. Ironically, it's not one person was a genius and was like, I'm so visionary and unique, like here's my brilliant soundscape. It's like 5 people just threw everything together until it started tasting good, you know, threw ingredients in the stew.
It rarely is. Of course, everybody looks for that unicorn idea, for that unicorn person, you know, magic touch. And then, yeah, it's so easy, but it's 6 months of work for many people until you find it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's
absolutely.
You know,
and now you have and now you have kind of a palette that you define. So we are going always in this direction. We are using these types of source sounds so that you have kind of a coherence in the vision.
Yeah. And I think what's really cool is that the stuff that like we're getting to a point where I can't really tell who did what. You know, I think at first it's like, well, that's obviously a Joel track. This is obviously my track. That's very much like an Akash sound, and that's very AJ, Alex Johnson. And I think now we're getting to that point where it's like, wow, it just sounds good. No idea where it came from. Like, it's just because people kind of get that sense. And there's no way to like write a document that's like, only do this, only do that. You just have to hear enough of the sounds and sort of emulate the other person. But what's really cool is that like, in the same way that when I was writing music, I would try to like sit down and, I'm going to write like a David Bowie song. And then I'd play it, you know, for my band, and they'd be like, what is the origin of this? I'm like, I'm trying to be Bowie, and like, this is not David Bowie at all. What happened? I think like every time you try to interpret someone else's work, you sort of get it wrong, but that's like a mutation, and it can be a really good thing. So I think like, you know, I'm always trying to copy the other designers, the other audio people, and failing and kind of creating something new. And they're like, whoa, what's that? I'm like, I was trying to copy you. Like, well, you messed up, but that's really cool. Let me try to copy that. Then they mess up and they push it in some new direction. And so there's always sort of an evolution. Even though we do have that defined palette, the next track I work on, I'm going to get it wrong somehow. And then that's going to add something to the palette and expand over time, so that we keep like bringing new ideas in, and it doesn't get old. Because we've only got 6, I don't know exactly what our timeline is, but like, you know, we're going to do early access, whatever, like the game's going to come out. We don't have that much time, but we're going to be working on this game for a long time, I imagine, and we don't want to get stale. So it's finding that balance of like staying cohesive, not kind of going off the rails, but, you know, finding new ideas consistently, so that we just enjoy our work. Like, we just always want to, you know, have fun with what we're doing. So, and we want people to listen to the game and not get bored.